What if there's an entire world hiding in your backyard? One you've never seen. Not a fantasy, not a trick of the camera, but something small, real, and absolutely magical. Welcome to Arkan Aesthetic Studio, where imagination meets the everyday. In this video, you'll explore 12 unique fairy garden ideas, all made from simple things you might already have. No fluff, just pure inspiration. You'll find timestamps below. Jump to whatever speaks to you. And if something sparks a question, leave a comment. I read every one. If you feel a connection here, use what you've got and build something beautiful. Not just with your hands, but with your heart. And before we dive in, I need to say this. To you, this might be just another video, but behind it, there's a real person and a real dream. Every like, every comment, every subscribe keeps that dream alive. You're not just growing a channel. You're helping a small family believe it's possible. Thank you for watching. Thank you for choosing to see me. One, whimsical woodland corners. There's a kind of peace that can only be found when you kneel close to the earth, when you slow down long enough to notice the tiny kingdoms quietly growing beneath the trees. In this scene, we step into a miniature woodland world, where fairies might very well exist just beyond what the eye can fully see. Nestled at the foot of a sturdy old tree, a simple wooden door hints at mystery. It stands not on a house, but at the tree's base itself, as if the trunk has become a gateway. Around it, yellow mushrooms bloom like lanterns, soft and cheerful, perfectly spaced among moss-covered stones that feel like ancient guardians of the grove. A hand-built fence, crafted from tiny twigs, gently encircles the space, not to keep anything out, but perhaps to keep the magic in. The lighting is soft, golden, natural sunlight filtering through tall grasses in the background. Nothing in this place is manicured. It's raw, earthy, alive. The moss isn't placed, it has settled. The mushrooms haven't been styled, they have grown. This is the heart of the fairy forest, not a set, not a display, but a tiny scene whispering the beauty of imperfection. In another nearby clearing, a perfect fairy ring lies quietly on the mossy floor. Smooth pebbles form a circle, a symbol of gathering, or perhaps of fairy ritual. Pine cones are scattered like forgotten offerings, and bark slices edge the garden space like rustic walls from the forest itself. Here, nature has been gently nudged, not manipulated. That's the secret of believable fairy worlds. They feel like they were always there, waiting to be noticed. And just a short step deeper into the garden, there's a full fairy village, complete with moss-roofed homes made from tree bark and logs. Acorns act as pots. Pebbles form clean, winding paths, and a twig ladder leans against one of the cottages, as if a fairy just climbed it. Sunlight bathes the scene with warm light, and each detail invites you to lean closer. This is more than decoration. It's storytelling in miniature. It's how we bring magic into the everyday using nothing more than nature's scraps, a childlike vision, and the patience to place a single stone as if it mattered deeply. Tips for recreating this at home? Start with what's around you. Fallen twigs become fences. Old tree bark can be the walls of a fairy home. Moss grows easily in shady spots and gives any scene that lived-in forest feel. And if you can, always build near something real. A tree, a stump, a rock. Let your creations blend in, rather than stand out. Fairy gardens aren't just projects. They're invitations to slow down, to believe again, and to remember that magic, sometimes, is made with what we almost throw away. 2. Miniature fairy furniture ideas. Sometimes, the smallest places offer the biggest comfort. Tucked beneath broad green leaves, sunlight flickering gently through, there's a tiny bench, carefully crafted from popsicle sticks. It waits, still and quiet, as if expecting someone to arrive with a story to tell. Beside it, a table made from a blue bottle cap stands proud and cheerful, propped up by 4 simple legs and crowned with a white button like a table centerpiece. Around it, soft stone stools form a welcoming circle, perfectly sized for tea and conversation among fairy folk. There is no extravagance here, only charm, intention, and a deep love for the details. The soil is real, the light is honest, the shadows soft. This is not a staged fantasy, it is a lived-in corner of creativity. Proof that magic doesn't require sparkle, only a little imagination and care. A little further along the garden path, you find another spot, woven into a sunlit patch of moss. A tiny hammock sways lazily between 2 twigs, tied with twine, made from lace, delicate as a whisper. Nearby, a rustic armchair sits like a throne, its seat and back carved lovingly from bark, the frame of twigs still rough and warm from the sun. The chair doesn't beg for attention, but it holds presence. You can almost hear the creak of wood if a fairy were to sit down and sigh. This is a place of rest, not performance. A place to pause, in a world that moves so fast. When you build like this, from what's fallen, forgotten, or found, you bring warmth to the garden and to yourself. And then, you stumble on something playful, a bright circle of color in the earth. Tiny chairs made from vibrant bottle caps sit neatly in a ring, pink and yellow and blue, each one paired with its own backrest. In the center, a scallop shell opens like a treasure chest, acting as a table, crowned by a single soft petal. Petals scatter the ground like confetti, a party perhaps, just ended, or about to begin. What makes these scenes special isn't the perfection of the materials, it's the story they tell. The suggestion of gathering, of comfort, of presence. The reminder that even trash can be transformed into treasure with the right heart behind it. If you're inspired to try this at home, start by seeing your scraps differently. A bottle cap isn't just a cap, it's a chair, a table, a dish. A popsicle stick is a plank of wood waiting to become something new. Twigs aren't waste, they're structure. Let your garden guide you, not the craft store. Because at the end of the day, a fairy garden doesn't need to be expensive. It just needs to feel like it belongs to the space and to you. Three, Enchanted garden lighting inspirations. As daylight fades and the sky deepens into a velvety blue, the garden begins to whisper a different kind of story, one told not through flowers or textures, but through light. Hanging gently from the branches of an old tree, a collection of simple jars begin to glow. They don't flash or flicker. They shimmer, calmly, steadily, as if tiny galaxies have been trapped inside glass. Each jar cradles a tumble of warm white fairy lights, and their soft glimmer casts golden reflections onto leaves and petals nearby. In this quiet hour, everything slows. You can almost feel the breath of the evening wrap around you. These aren't just lights. They are invitations to stay a little longer. You don't need anything complicated to recreate this magic. Old jars, a set of battery-operated string lights, and a few loops of wire are enough. Hang them at different heights to give your garden canopy depth and rhythm, and let the natural dusk do the rest. There's something eternal about this glow. It speaks of campfires and fireflies, stories and silences. Not far from the tree, another path reveals itself, this time lit by mushrooms that glow from within. Spaced evenly along a winding stone walkway, they guide the eye like tiny guardians of the trail. Each mushroom cap radiates a soft yellow light, pooling around its base in a gentle circle. The moss beneath them seems to drink in the warmth. This is not artificial beauty. It feels organic, like these mushrooms grew to glow, just as the stars grow to shine. What makes this enchanting isn't just the light, but the balance. These solar mushrooms don't overpower the space. They live in it. They belong. You can make your own with a little creativity, upcycled plastic domes, solar garden stakes, and a touch of red and white paint for that classic fairytale cap. The key is softness, not brightness. These lights aren't meant to show the way. They're meant to make you feel it. Then there's a quiet corner, the kind that makes you pause without knowing why. 4 colored bottles stand proudly on tree stump pedestals, each one glowing from within. Some hold candles, others cradle LED lights, but they all flicker with the same quiet magic. They don't match in color, and they don't have to. Amber, blue, red, green. Together, they paint the space in warmth. Behind them, little fairy houses nestle into the leaves, their windows barely catching the light. It feels like a neighborhood preparing for nightfall. If you're looking for something easy and unforgettable, bottle lanterns are pure alchemy. Clean glass, a flame or a light source, and a little patience for placement. Elevate them, space them, let them interact with shadows. It's in these shadows that the magic lives, not in the light itself. These are not just garden decorations. They're ways of gently saying you're welcome here. Ways of reminding us that light can be quiet and still move you deeply. So when the day ends, don't shut the garden away. Let it breathe at night. Let it glow. Let it tell new stories, the kind best whispered under stars. Four, hidden fairy doors and magical portals. There are moments in a garden when you pause, not because of what you see, but because of what you sense. A whisper of curiosity, a pull in your chest, a feeling that maybe, just maybe, something ancient and unseen lies right under your nose. And then, you see it. A door, not much bigger than your palm, tucked against the thick bark of an old tree. Pebbles frame its curved arch like a secret mosaic. Moss creeps softly around the edges, as if nature itself is guarding the threshold. A small lantern glows at its side, quiet and warm. It doesn't flash or sparkle. It glows, as though someone inside just lit it and might open the door at any moment. This is the kind of detail that turns a patch of garden into a living story. It doesn't demand attention, it invites wonder. With a little wood, some glue, and patience, you can craft a door like this. Add a frame of natural textures, stones, twigs, moss, and place it somewhere unexpected. The base of a tree is perfect. It feels rooted. It feels believable. Around the corner, an old brick wall holds another kind of portal. This one is round, and it doesn't try to hide. It's framed by bark, seashells, and winding vines, its steps carefully stacked, leading just high enough to make you wonder what lies behind it. It's not a child's playhouse. It's a door for beings older than stories, tucked into the everyday. Look closely and you'll see a trail, a vine that winds upward like a guide, as if it leads not just to the door, but into another world. This is the beauty of vertical fairy doors. They live in forgotten walls, near garden edges, or ivy-covered fences. If your home or yard has even a sliver of vertical space, it can be transformed. All it takes is the courage to believe that magic doesn't need much room to bloom. And then, in the most unlikely place, on the base of a simple flower pot, another door awaits. This one is bright blue, cheerful and bold, with a sign that simply says welcome. There's no grand mystery here, only joy. The kind of joy that comes from knowing magic can live on a balcony just as easily as in a forest. Surrounded by soft moss, smooth pebbles, and the gentle curve of potted petals. This setup reminds us that the fairies don't need acres of land or the perfect garden. They only need a little space and a little care. You can make this kind of door in an afternoon from scrap wood or thick cardboard, painted with intention and placed where light touches in the morning. These fairy portals don't shout. They don't sparkle with glitter or flash with neon light. But they do something more powerful. They suggest. They hint. They invite. And perhaps that's what we need more of, not to be shown magic, but to be led gently to where it might still exist. Five. Recycled container fairy worlds. Not everything broken is lost. Sometimes, it's the very crack in a thing that lets the magic in. Look closely at this terracotta pot. Once shattered, it might have been tossed aside, but now, it holds a village. Each level is terraced with soil and moss, carved naturally into the broken shape like the hillside of some far-off land. Tiny houses rest in the nooks. Little stairways, perfectly imperfect, wind their way up the miniature slope. And growing between it all, live plants push gently through the soil, blurring the line between what's real and imagined. This is more than a craft. It's a quiet celebration of reinvention. You don't need a perfect container. In fact, imperfection gives you layers. Try this with any pot that's chipped or split. Stack soil, build mini steps from bark or craft wood, and watch your story build itself, level by level. On a sun-warmed table sits another forgotten treasure, a teacup, dainty and once meant for porcelain afternoons. Now, it holds a world. Within its delicate walls, moss spills like green velvet. A gravel path winds between two hills, and a mushroom, bold and red, anchors the scene with color. But what makes this moment sing is the swing. It hangs from two twigs, bound by twine, a tiny seat waiting for someone light enough to sit on air. It's gentle. It's still. It's the kind of detail that makes people feel something. The beauty of a teacup fairy garden lies in its scale. It's small enough to sit on a windowsill but deep enough to carry wonder. Old mugs, chipped bowls, or even sugar pots can be turned into magical landscapes. The key is to let the curves guide your story. What might be a rim for soup becomes a hillside path in the hands of your imagination. And then, tucked among garden blooms, you find something unexpected, a rusted watering can. Its surface tells stories of sun and rain, of use and age. But now, a fairy home peeks from a door cut into its side, framed with lace-like trim. Inside, a tiny house glows with color, surrounded by pebbles and moss. It's not flashy, it's charming. The can's spout becomes an entrance, its lid a green rooftop. This is upcycling at its most poetic. A tool of watering becomes a home for watching. Something utilitarian becomes a vessel for enchantment. The lesson is simple and beautiful. When you look at things not for what they were, but for what they could be, the world opens up. Broken pottery becomes mountains. Old cups become valleys. Rusted cans become castles. And maybe, just maybe, your own garden becomes not just a place to grow, but a place to imagine. Six, natural pebble paths and leaf trails. Every world, no matter how small, needs a path, a way forward, a quiet trail that leads you home or into the unknown. In the hush of a sunlit garden, there's a curving line of pine needles and pressed bark, each piece carefully placed, every texture in harmony with the soil beneath it. Flat bark slices make natural stepping stones, and soft green leaves hug each side of the trail, forming the gentlest border. At the end, a tiny wooden house awaits, not just a destination, but a promise. The kind of place that makes you want to take your shoes off and walk slow, just to feel the magic underfoot. Creating a trail like this doesn't require anything fancy, only patience and a quiet mind. Gather what's fallen, bark, leaves, needles, and arrange them as if the fairies will truly use them. Let the trail meander, never forcing it straight. That's how nature moves, in gentle curves and imperfect lines. A little farther, another path gleams. This one made from shimmering glass stones, cool blues and greens that reflect the sky above. Acorn caps line the trail like tiny lanterns or resting bowls, framing the soft sparkle. The clovers growing nearby seem to lean in, as if admiring the artistry. It's a different kind of beauty, bolder, perhaps, but no less grounded. These paths catch the light, not just your eye, and they're surprisingly simple to make. A collection of flat marbles or glass pebbles from any craft store can become something enchanting when paired with natural textures. The acorn caps, gathered from the base of an old oak, add a rustic frame, a way of marrying magic with the familiar. And then there is the most delicate of them all, a ribbon of smooth white pebbles winding gently through a bed of moss. Tiny flowers bloom nearby, while soft pink petals fall as if scattered by a breeze. Twigs stand tall on either side, forming an arch that suggests arrival or departure, or both. This path doesn't announce itself. It doesn't glow. It simply exists, quietly, confidently, like it's always been there, waiting to be seen. What all these pathways share is not just beauty, it's intention. A sense that someone cared enough to place each piece with purpose. That's what makes a fairy garden come alive. Not the cost, but the care. Not the perfection, but the placement. So next time you walk through your garden, look down. What could become a path? A leaf? A pebble? A pine needle? The things we usually overlook are often the most magical, if we give them a role to play. Because sometimes, the shortest path to wonder is the one made by hand. Seven, fantasy creatures in fairy scenes. In every fairytale garden, it's not just the flowers or paths that tell the story, it's who lives there. In a quiet patch of moss under bright marigolds, a fairy rests gently on a stone. Her wings shimmer in the sun, though there's no glitter, no flash. Just soft, translucent curves catching the morning light. She sits peacefully, arms wrapped around her knees, gazing not at the sky, but at a little snail perched on a mushroom. The snail, slow and silent, seems to raise its head as if returning the gaze. And in that stillness, something happens. The garden shifts. It becomes alive not with motion, but with presence. You feel as if you've stumbled across a moment meant only for the creatures that dwell here, and yet they don't mind that you've found them. That's the beauty of placing fairy figurines among real plants. Choose one or two, not to dominate the scene, but to be part of it. Let them sit in shade, rest under blooms, or perch by stone. The goal isn't perfection. It's pause. A little farther down the grass, a gnome pushes a wooden wheelbarrow brimming with petals, pinks, whites, and soft edges freshly fallen. Behind him, a handmade twig fence lines the space, and tiny ladybugs scale the branches like red jewels. A rabbit statue leans gently into the frame, neither grand nor centered, but quietly watching. This is not a staged tableau. It's a living scene. There's joy in the absurdity, a gnome working among bugs, petals as cargo. And yet it feels sincere. Because it's not about realism. It's about charm. Use your imagination with figurines like these. Gnomes, animals, or insects. Let them have jobs. Give them purpose. Place them where the sun hits, or where a shadow falls just right. Sometimes, the smallest additions turn a patch of grass into a village of dreams. And finally, in a shaded nook by a picket fence, something truly magical waits. A unicorn, serene and snowy, rests beside a tiny watering hole made from smooth stones and a single glowing glass gem. Above it, a fairy stands watch with a leaf umbrella in her hand. Not because it's raining, but because that's what she does. It's a moment that doesn't try too hard. It doesn't sparkle, doesn't sing, and yet it enchants. The blue pond shines quietly in its stone nest, and the green grass cradles each figure like a velvet pillow. This kind of scene is easily built, but what gives it soul is the composition, the way each creature has space to exist, to breathe, to belong. That's the heart of fairy garden storytelling. Not just arranging figures, but letting them settle. Letting them feel real, even if only to you. Letting them tell stories that need no words at all. Eight, creative mushroom decor ideas. In the quiet stillness beneath a shady tree, where the moss grows thick and time seems to pause, a cluster of hand-painted mushrooms rises like little beacons of joy. Their rounded caps, bright red with tiny white polka dots, bring a pop of playful charm to the forest floor. Crafted from wooden knobs and lovingly nestled among wild leaves and sun-dappled petals, they look as though they've always belonged here. It's a gentle illusion, but also an invitation. Anyone passing by can imagine fairies gathering at their base for morning tea, the soft light casting elongated shadows across the moss. You don't need anything fancy to create this magic. A bit of paint, a few natural props, and an eye for wonder is all it takes. Move a little closer, and you'll find a different scene, quirky and alive. Here, pastel mushrooms sprout from egg cups and bottle tops, their colors soft like morning candy. They've been set amongst thyme and garden stones, visited by tiny ants who seem just as curious as we are. This is upcycled magic at its best, where the mundane becomes marvelous. It's the kind of scene that sparks laughter and delight, especially from children peeking between the plants. And then, there's serenity. Smooth ceramic mushrooms standing tall in a meadow of clover, their caps kissed by dew. The sunlight glints off their gentle curves, and everything feels calm, almost reverent. You don't question whether fairies walk here, you feel it. This is nature's poetry sculpted into something permanent. Something to pause for, something that slows your breath and lifts your spirit. Whether your mushrooms are hand-carved, painted by little hands, or thoughtfully purchased, they tell a story of joy and care. Let your garden be a place where creativity and calm coexist, where the simple act of placing a mushroom becomes a whisper of magic for anyone who passes by. Nine, tiny garden architecture designs. Not all fairies sleep beneath petals or dance on dew. Some build. And if you look closely enough, tucked into the quiet corners of your backyard, you may just catch a glimpse of their handiwork. The first vision is that of a delicate gazebo, constructed entirely from twigs, lace, and imagination. It stands like a sacred sanctuary in miniature form, its leafy garlands gently swaying in the breeze. Each beam is softened with moss at its feet, while a pathway of tiny pebbles invites the smallest of guests inside. It's a stage for moonlit gatherings and tea under the stars, where time slows and stories are whispered. You can recreate this enchantment with gathered twigs, a circle of lace from an old tablecloth, and a little glue. A table crafted from a stump slice and leaf bunting made of paper or dried greens will make it feel alive. Set it under a shrub, and let the shade cast real mystery over your creation. Wander further and you'll come upon a tower of stones, rounded and weathered, stacked high with gentle care. At its top rests a pine cone, nestled among slices of bark like shingles on a storybook roof. Ivy begins its slow crawl upward, as if nature itself wants to wrap this magical structure in a loving embrace. This tower, strong, stoic, and timeless, belongs in the heart of your fairy forest. All it takes is a collection of smooth river pebbles, bark scraps, and a dash of patience. Use hot glue to build the form and add a hidden battery tea light inside to make it glow at dusk. The vines will come naturally if you place it where creeping plants grow free. Then there is the most charming surprise of all. A cottage made from a glass bottle, its curved surface a crystal wall into a mossy inner world. Its roof is bark, its door a woven ring of rope and twine. Sunlight plays across its clear shell, casting reflections onto the grass, like stained glass made by fairies themselves. What's wonderful is how achievable this is. Use an old spice jar, a slice of bark, and a bit of twine. Fill the bottle with moss or tiny fairy lights. Press it into a mossy bed between flowers, and you've given your garden a secret home. Tip to keep in mind: use weather-resistant glue if you're placing your designs outdoors, and always blend your structures with natural surroundings, moss, leaves, bark, or vines, to create a believable harmony between craft and nature. These miniature structures don't just decorate your garden. They anchor the fantasy. They're places where stories live and quiet dreams take shape. And as you build them, carefully bending twigs, tying leaves, painting miniature windows, you just might feel like you're crafting more than a fairy home. You're creating a moment, a world, a memory, a little sanctuary for wonder. Vintage fairy decor inspirations. There are gardens that bloom, and then there are gardens that remember. In a sun-dappled corner of the backyard, we find the first curious scene. A wooden plank, softened by weather and time, cradles a tiny window framed with real lace and moss. But it's no ordinary window. At its center rests a grand keyhole, a secretive silhouette suggesting there's more than meets the eye. Perhaps it's not just a peephole, but a portal, a way for fairies to look out, or for us to peer in. And beside it, a spoon, rusted and retired, now reborn as a whimsical signpost. A quiet gesture of hospitality from another world, its worn letters whispering, "The fair folk have been here." Moving deeper into this vintage tale, we're invited into a scene that feels plucked from a grandmother's sewing box, only shrunk to fairy scale. A golden frame, delicate and suspended from a low branch, reflects a shimmer of green. Beneath it, a tiny bouquet sits proudly in a thimble, balanced atop a matchbox made into a drawer chest. This is not just decoration. It's memory, craft, and story wrapped into one. Tip: try hanging old brooches, small mirrors, or heirloom trinkets in your garden. Repurpose objects not just for use, but for wonder. And at last, we arrive at the tin house. A small, vintage tea tin has found new life. Its curved door, complete with button knob, and lace-trimmed window make it feel like the perfect nook for an old soul of the woods. Acorns lie scattered at its feet like offerings. Ivy leans close. Sunlight catches the shimmer of tin and moss and makes everything still. This is where the past doesn't vanish. It gets gently tucked into a fairy home. Creating a vintage fairy garden is about more than planting flowers or arranging stones. It's about storytelling through texture, through tarnish and time, through things once loved, now reimagined. So the next time you hold a forgotten item in your hand, a rusty spoon, a cracked mirror, a tin without a lid, ask yourself, what would a fairy make of this? You may just be holding the next piece of their tiny, timeless world. (11) Seasonal Fairy Garden Corners. In the ever-whispering rhythm of the seasons, the fairy garden world follows its own quiet clock, one that turns not with haste, but with harmony. Spring arrives like a soft breath upon the meadow, scattering blossoms through the breeze. Beneath the flowering arms of a cherry tree, little cottages with pastel rooftops huddle together like old friends greeting the morning. Nearby, a patch of tulips rises in tender bloom, their pink heads tilting gently toward the sun. On a miniature woven rug lies a delicate picnic set, thimbles turned into teacups, a basket the size of a walnut filled with invisible fairy cakes. It is a scene of peace and promise, and a simple idea you can bring to life using polymer clay, tiny dollhouse elements, or even upcycled trinkets. The key is softness, in colors, textures, and mood, to echo that gentle energy of spring rebirth. As the year ripens, the air deepens into autumn. Golden light spills across a cozy corner framed by dry oak leaves, crisp and curled like nature's parchment. A log cabin of tiny twigs stands nestled in a bed of faux moss, guarded by handcrafted pumpkins, acorn caps for stems, vibrant orange beads for fruit. A broom leans gently on the cabin wall, hinting that the fairy who lives here may return any moment to sweep her stoop. This is a corner rich with harvest energy and rustic charm. You can easily craft similar scenes by gathering natural materials like bark, seed pods, or twigs from your backyard. It's less about perfection, and more about the feeling of warmth and preparing for rest. Then comes winter, quiet and crisp, like a song hummed under one's breath. A quaint wooden cottage is nestled in moss that wears a dusting of snow, not real, but a magical illusion created by a sprinkle of powdered sugar or faux snow. The roof, crowned with pine cones, is an artwork of texture, while colorful gem-like windows glow with imagined warmth. A tiny sled waits patiently by the entrance. Here, Time feels slow, almost still. Winter fairy gardens invite the use of contrast. Dark wood against white, glittering accents that catch soft light, and tiny treasures to remind us that even in dormancy, beauty holds its breath. Try using cinnamon sticks, cloves, or old holiday decor to recreate this seasonal silence in miniature form. Each of these fairy garden corners whispers its own story, not just of design, but of emotion. Spring flutters with joy, autumn glows with gratitude, and winter hushes with wonder. You don't need a grand plan or expensive tools to recreate these feelings. Just listen closely to the world around you, and let the seasons guide your hands. The fairies, after all, dwell not in extravagance, but in the tender details we so often overlook. Miniature water features for fairy gardens. In the gentle hush of an enchanted garden, where imagination meets nature and silence carries the hum of hidden life, there lies a secret known only to the most observant hearts, the magic of miniature water features. This is where fairies come to reflect, to rest, and to feel the rhythm of the earth. The first scene opens with a quiet mirror pond, a slice of sky cradled gently in the soil. Pebbles trace its outline like a soft whisper, moss spills around its edge, and lily pads crafted from tiny leaves float peacefully. A delicate arched bridge, made from humble twigs, bends gracefully over one side. There's no trick here, only truth. The sky above is mirrored in the stillness below, and in that reflection, the garden holds its breath. If you listen closely, you might hear the wings of a fairy pause as she lingers in thought above the mirrored surface. To recreate this dreamy piece at home, use a round mirror as the base, surround it with stones and moss, and top it off with hand-cut leaves or paper lilies. A small piece of bent cardboard wrapped in twigs makes a perfect bridge, simple, charming, and wonderfully grounding. Next, we wander toward the waterfall, a sanctuary in motion. Smooth river stones rise like ancient steps, stacked with patience and care. From between them, a steady stream of water spills downward, catching sunlight as it dances into a pool of shimmering blue marbles. Each droplet is a tiny song of joy, and together they sing of flow, of time, of peace. The ferns sway in approval, and wildflowers bow at the edge, offering their fragrance to the breeze. This magical setup can be crafted with a small water pump hidden behind the stones, surrounded by blue glass beads to mimic depth and motion. The key here is balance between texture, light, and sound to transform an ordinary corner into a fairy's favorite waterfall. And finally, we follow the blue thread of a fairy stream. It winds like a lullaby through blooming beds of pansies and petunias. The water is made of translucent glass pebbles and blue gravel, glistening like sunlight caught in motion. Stone steps cross the current, inviting fairy travelers to wander from one side to the other. And at the edge of the stream, a tiny dock, lovingly built from popsicle sticks, waits quietly for a visitor. Perhaps a boat will be tied there at dusk, or a leaf will drift by at dawn. You can build this winding stream by carving a shallow path through a flower bed, lining it with white stones, and layering the center with your chosen water, colored beads, crushed glass, or tumbled gems. Add a handcrafted dock or a wooden bridge for a touch of whimsy that invites the viewer deeper into the story. Each water feature, whether still or flowing, invites calm. They are not just decorative elements. They are invitations to pause, to notice, to dream. In your own backyard, these magical touches are simpler to recreate than they appear. And the joy they return, a flicker of peace in a hectic world, a window to wonder, is immeasurable. So gather your stones, moss, mirrors, and beads. Create a pond that holds the sky, a waterfall that sings with light, or a stream that winds like a story. Let your fairy garden speak, and may your spirit always listen. If this video meant something to you, please know that subscribing means the world to me. You're not just supporting content, you're supporting a dream that keeps my family going. Thank you, truly. I'd also love to hear from you. What did you enjoy the most? Is there anything I could do better to keep inspiring or simply entertaining you? Your feedback helps this channel grow with heart and purpose. Let me know in the comments. I read every one.